We have always been asked to study hard and get a good grades. And how many of us have been struggling, staying up late, stressing on certain subject, but still, we got an average result, apart from the effort. And that makes me wonder, are there any tricks and secrets on getting a good grade, or technically, learning the right way to learn? I'm very fortunate to find an online course from Coursera on learning how to learn, conducted by Dr. Barbara Oakley and Dr. Terrence Sejnowski under McMaster University and University of California, San Diego. After almost 4 weeks joining this course, it made me rethink and replan about my study routine in achieving a good grades with a smart move. Learning is an active phenomenon that involves thinking, memory, and emotion. The important and yet the most underestimated things we always overlook is getting to know how our brain works. Researchers have found that we have two fundamentally different modes of thinking. Here I call them the focus mode and the diffuse mode. We are familiar with focusing. It is when we concentrate intently on something we are trying to learn. It's somehow when we are in our conscious mind. But we are not so familiar with diffuse thinking. Turns out, this more relaxed thinking style is related to a set of neural resting states. Somehow, this is relating to our subconscious mind. Our brain is exactly an extraordinary supercomputer that have the ability to learn a new way, reframing about learning deeply, actively, and with no depress. Now, as far as neuroscientists concerned, we are either in focus mode or the diffuse mode of thinking. It seems that we cannot be in both thinking modes at the same time because it requires training and deliberate practice for our mind to be able to go back and forth between the two different learning modes to help us in learning effectively. Next, procrastination has always been the biggest threat in our study routine. Sometimes we feel that we have done a lot in a 5-minute reading and end up laying down in our bed scrolling our phone mindlessly for almost 2 hours and more. Are there any tricks to prevent this from happening? Yes, they are. Let me introduce a handy little tool that was invented by Francesco Cirillo in the early 1980s. It is called a Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro is Italian for a tomato because the timer they use often looks like a tomato. All you need to do is set a timer to 25 minutes, turn off all interruption, and then focus. That's it. Because almost everyone can focus for 35 minutes. The only last important thing is to give yourself a little reward when you are done. A few minutes of enjoyable videos or a bite of chocolate, or even stretching and chatting mindlessly to allowing your brain to enjoyably change its focus for a while. You will find that using this Pomodoro technique is very effective. It's like doing an intense 25-minute workout followed by some mental relaxation. Give it a try. Now, we're going to talk about two major memory systems, working memory and long-term memory. Working memory, in analogy, can be shown as a small whiteboard that written an information, but will get erased when there is a new information coming in. While long-term memory is like a warehouse, a storage house where information is stored and retrieved whenever they are needed. So long-term memory is very important because it is where we store fundamental concepts and techniques that are often involved in whatever we're learning about. When we encounter something new, we often use our working memory to handle it. If we want to move our information into our long-term memory, it often takes time and practice. The secret is by using spaced repetition. This technique involves repeating what we are trying to retain, but what we want to do is to space this repetition out, repeating a new concept or problem-solving techniques, for example, over a number of days. Extending this practice over several days does make a difference. Research has shown that if we try to glue things into our memory by repeating something 20 times in one day, for example, it won't stick nearly as well as if we practice the same number of times over several days. This helps in building a strong fundamental structure of our concept rather than a clumsy and rushing structural of our fundamentals. In scientific terms, it making sure our synaptic connection are well built. Last, and of course not the least, you might be surprised that being awake creates toxic in our brain. So how does the brain get rid of these poisons? It turns out by sleeping. Sleep, which can sometimes seems like such a waste of time, is actually our brain's way of keeping itself clean and healthy. For example, taking a test or exam without getting enough sleep means you are operating with a brain that got a little metabolic toxin floating around it. It's a poison and make you cannot think very clearly. In fact, getting too little sleep doesn't just make you do worse on a test. Too little sleep over too long of a time can also be associated with all sort of nasty condition. But sleep does more than just allow our brain to wash away toxin. It's actually important part of the memory and learning process. It seems that during sleep, our brain tidies up ideas and concepts we are thinking about and learning. It erases the less important parts of memories and simultaneously strengthen areas that we need or we want to remember. Sleep has always been shown to make a remarkable difference in our ability to figure out difficult problems and to understand what we're trying to learn. As a conclusion, there are still a lot of knowledge we have to consider to relearn everything in order to optimize our learning method. For example, research show that highlighting the whole page of our books will actually just create illusion of competence, rather than if we do a simple trick like active recall that helps strengthen our synaptic connection or building our strong wall structure. I found that by learning how to learn, we are structurally guided to a path of success because we have the chance to have the key as the secret tool. Feel free to visit online course on learning how to learn in Coursera and brandfacts.org for more brain tips. I'm Amar Afif. Happy learning how to learn.